Okay, everyone, we have an interesting matchup here. It's my Reina Roja Blackguard deck versus a Cerebral Imaging deck. Alright, Cerebral Imaging is rather notorious for being able to score many agenda points in one turn with all the shipment cards, shipment from Kaguya, Sensen, and Ryomorph, chained together via biotic labels and efficiency committees for mega turns. So I was worried about that, but turned out that this wasn't that kind of deck. He started very thinly on ice. All his centrals were porous, and I installed a data sucker to capitalize on that. One of the few games that I actually managed to fish out a data sucker from the get-go. Ooh, another pop-up window, that's great. So I get lots of free accesses and free data sucker tokens. Doing very well so far. Arguably, I should have installed Keyhole on my very first turn and milled 2 sets of cards from R&D. I think that was a major mistake. But I didn't really want to suffer the tempo loss of going down to 1 credit. Yeah. And now that he iced out archives, I don't think I'll be bringing out that Keyhole anymore. I think now if you want to make a competitive runner deck, you need to have some sort of any sort of card that punishes the Corp for leaving HQ or R&D open in the first 1 or 2 turns. Account Siphon, Indexing, or Maker's Eye, Medium, Nerve Agent, anything like that. You need those kind of cards. My deck lacks them. Completely lacks them, save for Keyhole. So yeah, that is a major flaw in my gameplay. And sometimes, I mean, even if you have you start with Keyhole and R&D is open, you don't want to use up half your memory space installing a Keyhole because you might need that memory space down the road. Anyway, the game goes on. Eli has appeared on R&D, so if there was any thought of breaking into R&D with Keyhole, now it has been sealed off. And HQ is also sealed off too. I continue raking up money and drawing out with Mr. Lee, hoping to dig for stuff. Specifically the Snitch. I'm missing that. I already have Blackguard, waiting for the Snitch. I think that's another problem with my deck. It involves too many combo components, so I need to spend my early turns digging instead of running, which is very problematic for an early game deck. I mean, for a deck that, for an identity that is all about early game pressure. Reina Roja. I installed a Mimic because Ichis and Rototaurus are terrible. But that was just an Eli, and he didn't res it. I just exposed it with the Snitch. And I scored Profiteering, so now I'm on 3 points. Not too bad. But now I'm back to 2 credits. There's another problem. If you want to treasure the Corp early, you are not going to get the money you need to install Blackguard. 11 install cost is terrible. It's really horrible. And after that, I needed to devote an entire turn to empty out my Armitage just so that I can install my Liberator accounts, just so that I can get up to 11 credits, just so that I can install Blackguard. In the meantime, these few turns where I'm not placing any pressure on the Corp by digging his R&D, by emptying his hand of agendas, he is gaining a lot of money. He's now on 21 credits with purple level clearance. Yes, all the purple purple cards, all the level clearances. Yeah, so now I'm above the 11 credit threshold, but I want the Blackguard install to be a surprise. And right now he only has 2 pieces of Unrest Ice out, so no point showing out the Blackguard yet. Instead, I raid his HQ. Yeah, I know that for Cerebral Imaging, a lot of agendas tend to power up in HQ, and that would be the best place to attack. Furthermore, he doesn't seem to be intent on raising that Eli just yet, so I'm fine with that. He's actually also slow playing the game. I mean, as HB, usually you slow play, and that's what he's doing right now. He's gaining creds, getting up to a good healthy hand size. Most runners will punish him for having only 4 pieces of ice out by this point in time. I'm not punishing him at all, so that's a very bad thing. I draw the Corroder, so his Eli will be completely useless. Well, it will tax me, but I have Data Sucker. Breakthrough. And I try to get another agenda out of his hand. Instead, I'll DC another Hudson. Hudson, not very useful for me. I mean, not very useful against me. So he continues to juice up. He is now up to 30 credits, which is very formidable. And HQ gets more defense. I know that he has a lot of agendas in hand. Not much I can do about that, huh? So I continue drawing up and getting credits. Now that HQ is rather tightly sealed, it's time to attack R&D. And I got the Liberator out so that I can install a Blackguard if he chooses to install any more ice. But of course, he's not playing the remote game. He's playing advanced from hand. 2 biotic labels was all he needed, and to score that efficiency committee. Now that's very bad news. Any of the shipments can cause huge trouble when combined with efficiency committee. So now that he was on around 20 credits and 14 cards in hand, I was thinking of killing him by forcing him to rest all his ice so that he will be at a credit deficit and will be forced to trash lots of cards from hand. But I was stopped cold by a Victor 2, and I ended up getting traced by it because I didn't play my York out. Until now, even though the pop-up windows have been there all the time, the cost of 5 credits was way too much, and early game tempo hit for me to play. With most Anarchs, it's okay because that is your standard breaker suite, but for me, I'm not intending to break ice so much as to destroy them with parasites. Yeah. And the worst thing that can happen, he scores an agenda, the agenda is called Profiteering, and he gains 15 credits. So now, not only does he have a lot of money, he has an agenda point. Now he's tied with me. So immediately I take advantage of the 3 bad pub, raid R&D, see nothing, and yeah, the game is definitely slipping from my hands. As long as he has credits and some sort of shipment, he can easily score agendas out of hand. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. He uses Efficiency Committee to play shipment from Sansan and scores the beta test. Oh, and to ice out R&D just to put more fun in me. Never mind, since you decide to throw ice out, I'll snitch it for you. It's an Ichi. Thought about it for a while, and then I decided to break through it because I could. I mean, the bad pub gives me a huge discount on running, so why not? So yeah, I decided to lock down R&D, but I mean, by now R&D lockdown means nothing because I'm pretty sure he has more than enough agenda points to win from his hand. He's on 5 points right now. Just one more 2-pointer would win him the game. So yeah, I needed to find some way to get into HQ, and sure I did. The York comes out, and I start breaking. The Eli that I knew was there, paid for it, and went nearly bankrupt. But at least I get through HQ, and at least I get to see an agenda, which is... Nope, that's my agenda, that's yet another Hudson. I think he included Hudson in this deck because he knew that any sort of HQ digging would kill his plans. And he scores the final agenda and wins the game. Okay. On the screen, you'll see the list of complaints I have about my own deck. A lot of weaknesses. I'll just like to talk about the opponent's deck. Cerebral Imaging is a very interesting and underrated HP identity. The ability to combo with all the shipment cards is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. However, the problem is that it's the early game. I chatted with my opponent after the game, and he said that yes, early game runners are indeed the bane of this deck because when you include so many shipment cards in your deck, you are bound to have less ice, and his ice are rather porous. Look at pop-up window and all the clickable bioroids. Any deck, like my Gabe deck for example, Maker's Eye Run, Account Siphon to drain his money. All these stuff would easily suppress him from making any further advancements, and that drastically slow him down enough for me to dig even more cards to win the game. So yeah, it's unfortunate that my deck, this Reina deck, really is really lackluster when it comes to scoring agendas. The Snitch Blackguard combo is one-shot firework that does a lot. I mean, that goes off with a blast, but then after that you will find you run out of steam because when you res all the eyes, you realize that you cannot break through anything. It's a one-hit wonder, not going to work very well. I'm considering dismantling this deck. Thanks for watching. Hope you've gained some insight into both my Reina deck and this Cerebral Imaging deck. See you around.